Welcome to Scoop and Scale, where we dish up the science and weigh the facts about mostly equine nutrition. I'm Jill Jackson, lifelong equestrian, podcast producer, and pony owner. I'm a dressage rider and at-home horse keeper, living the challenge of managing easy keepers on multiple acres of pasture.
And I'm equine nutrition consultant, Dr. Claire Tunis of Clarity Equine Nutrition. I develop diet plans for horses ranging from metabolic seniors to Olympic athletes. I also consult for equine nutrition companies. I'm a scientist, dressage rider, and pony club mom.
Claire and I have been horse friends for almost 20 years, and like all good horse friends, we're always talking horses. We talk about the challenges of managing our horses, our riding struggles, feeding horses, and what's going on in the wider equine community. This podcast is a place for us to have conversations mostly about equine nutrition. It's for anyone who wants to make better choices when it comes to feeding their horses.
And before we get started, a quick disclaimer. The information in this podcast is general and not meant to replace the individualized advice of your own qualified equine nutritionist or veterinarian. And while I have a PhD in nutrition, I'm not a veterinarian and can't give medical advice.
With that, thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the following episode.
For many, the summer months mean traveling with horses is in full swing. That might be heading to the mountains for a week of backcountry trail riding, hitting the summer shows, or as some of my friends are doing, leaving to find cooler climates for the summer. Most of these summer activities will involve putting your horse in a trailer. So today we thought we'd discuss traveling with your horse, especially in the summer months. I thought we should start at the beginning with trailer safety, because before you take your horse anywhere, you need to make sure that the truck and trailer are roadworthy and safe.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this the other day. I have not used my trailer in well over 6 months, and with a new horse, I want to see whether he's happy loading into that trailer, as it's different configuration than what he has been or what he was using before. And it dawned on me that my trailer's been sitting in the equipment barn for, like I said, I think maybe it was November or October of last year was the last time I had it out.
Yeah, so
before I take it anywhere,
yeah.
Before I take it anywhere, like it definitely needs a once over. We need to get it out, take a look at it and see, tires, all that type of stuff.
And make sure you don't have any mice living in it.
Lots of cats, no mice.
Seriously, I parked my car momentarily. I don't know where, it must have been at the barn. I don't know. And some critter somewhere chewed through a wire. And yeah, they do love wiring. Anyway, yeah, definitely worth if it's been stored that long to check it over. And I'm definitely guilty of losing track of time, right? And months fly by, and it seems like just yesterday that I had my trailer serviced, and then suddenly you realize, oh, actually it hasn't been done in a year. And typically I get mine serviced in September. I have a great guy near me who does its annual service. He just has a little business. He's a retired mechanic, and he kind of does it for me. And I do it in September because then it's ready for our busy season, because it's so hot in Arizona. We don't travel so much in the summer. But for folks that are heading into their busy season now, if you haven't had your trailer serviced by a professional in the last year, I would highly recommend you get it looked at. At a minimum, they should check and repack the bearings, look at your floor, right? Your wiring, the brakes, and the auxiliary battery. Those are all things that need to be checked at least annually.
Yeah, it's really important to check your tires, because with hot weather, the hot asphalt, the tires blow out. I mean, I feel like when you see tire blowout, it's usually in the summer, especially in Arizona because it's so hot.
Yeah.
Anyway, and tires with sidewall damage are especially prone to blowouts.
Right. If your trailer's sat like yours has, right, and the air pressure's gone down a little bit, especially in the winter, and they've gotten a little flat, they can be sitting on their sidewalls, and that's not good for tires to sit on the sidewall of the tire. But definitely, and they get flat spots in the tires. My husband, we both have engineers, right? Automotive people in our families. And so tires flat spotting is a real thing. And then tires with flat spots are more likely to blow as well. So I don't mess around with tires. I feel like in a trailer, I am happy to invest money in good tires, good quality tires with steel walls. And then that way, if they do blow, they're less likely to blow, and they're less likely to shred as well.
I agree. And didn't you have a couple of trailer tire adventures recently?
I did. Yes. And yeah, earlier this year, I got a nail in my trailer tire. And when I found it, I was fairly close. I actually stopped somewhere to pick my daughter up. And as she was getting in, she noticed that the one of the rear tire on the trailer was flat, very flat. And so, of course, I have an air compressor, mobile air compressor. So I wanted to put some air in it because I was in a great parking lot. I probably could have changed the tire right there, but I was also literally just over the freeway exit from a bunch of like gas stations and auto repair shops. And I just thought if I could just get to one of them, like the tires were new on the trailer. So I knew they'd been put on with a really, industrial strength air compressor, and I was like, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get these tires off. So I just thought if I can get over the freeway, I can probably find someone to help me do this, but I need to get air in the tire first. And I have one of those mobile air compressors, but I had taken it home to charge it and it was sitting fully charged on my garage counter, which
It's always the case.
right. So the one time I got this piece of equipment, I never used it. The one time I needed it, it was sitting in my garage. So I was actually rescued by a lovely lady who was passing by, happened to work for UPS. And she happened to have one in her car. And so she came and helped me blow my tire up again. But literally, as soon as we unhooked it, you could hear the air hissing out of it. It was a huge hole. And we did get it to the repair shop around the corner. And that was the whole story of itself. But anyway, they changed the tire. I had the spare. We were on our way again. So definitely, I think having one of those air compressor jump starter things is a really good idea, and making sure it's charged and with you, though. Otherwise, it's not very helpful. And mine, it's self-powered, and I think people often have them in their car where you plug it into the dashboard to do the tires on your car, but the cable on those is often not long enough to reach the trailer tires. And so it's worth having one that has its own power and doesn't need to be plugged into the dash on your truck.
For sure. And didn't you also get rescued by Border Patrol?
Yeah, that was a different adventure. So that wasn't my truck and trailer. We were coming back from a horse show in California with a friend, and we kind of felt this like strange feeling. I mean, it's an odd feeling if you've ever towed a horse trailer that's got a flat. It's quite an odd feeling, and then it sort of righted itself and disappeared. But we realized actually somebody overtook us. We were on 2-lane highway coming back from San Diego, and somebody overtook us and sort of like gesticulated at us that we had a tire problem, and so we pulled over at the next exit. We had to go all the way down the hill first to find a safe exit, and we exited, and sure enough, the tire had actually shredded on the trailer. And there, like, the freeway kind of had an underpass under it, and there was a Border Patrol truck sitting in the shade under there. And they watched us for a little bit as we got all the gear out to jack the trailer up and get the tire off. And then they came over to kind of check us out and see what we were up to. And they very kindly changed the tire for us. But that was an interesting lesson from that experience, because we had all the gear, right, that we needed. And we had a spare, right? But the spare was actually low in air. And I think, that was a real lesson to me, because I'm really diligent about checking the air in my tires before I go places, especially when the weather
I know this
changes.
about you.
I know, she's always laughing at me, especially in the winter, because it gets so hot here in the summer, right, that the air heats up. And so you have more pressure in your tires. And then in the winter time, when it gets cold here, your tires can actually suddenly be too flat.
When it gets cold and it's down to 55.
Exactly. Well, the opposite can be true for you, right? You pump them up when it's minus 20 and then it's 80 degrees. But anyway, so the weather changes affect the air pressure in your tires. So
yes,
I'm really diligent, as Jill can attest to, in checking the air pressure in my tires. But I never really thought about checking the air pressure in my spare in my tack room. And sure enough, the same with this trailer. We pulled the spare out and we actually needed to put air in it. And luckily, we had one of those compressors with us again, and it was charged, and we were able to put air in it and go on our way. But so yeah, always have a spare. Always make sure it's functional and has the right amount of air in it. So.
Well, I think that raises another important consideration when traveling with horses, is that you need to have the equipment with you to actually change a tire on a truck or the trailer. And for the trailer, that means you need to have a way to get the tire off the ground, which
right.
for most of us is done by having the tandem tire changing ramp, and you also need to have a tire iron with a longer lever arm that fits the lug nuts on your trailer, which there's lots of stuff
Yes.
that's not like on the actual trailer. I mean, my trailer is a 2000, like it's 26 years old. Like any of the
Yeah.
original things that came with it are no
Hmm.
longer with it. So, yeah, you
Yeah.
definitely need to make sure you have these things before you head out.
And it sounds stupid to say make sure it fits the tire, but good point. That when we were in the California tire debacle, right? It turned out that the tire iron that we had, none of them actually fit the lug nuts on the trailer. That
Yeah,
tire iron did not go with that trailer. They have
right.
another trailer. It went with the other trailer. Thankfully, her husband had decked the back of that truck out with more tools than you could possibly know what to do with. And so we had all kinds of socket sets and stuff, right, with us. And so we were able to find something that fit. But that would have been, you would have thought you were, great, I got the right tire iron or whatever. And we didn't. It didn't
Right.
fit. So it is, worth making sure all those things fit. And like, actually know how to change a tire, which sounds silly. You mentioned that ramp, the tire changing ramp.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't seen those, what you do is you either, like, let's say you're taking off a back trailer tire, you drive you put the ramp in front of the tires and you drive up onto it so that the front tire is now up on that, and so then the back tire is off the ground. Alternatively, you would reverse onto it if you needed to change the first tire. So it's instead of having a jack, so you don't have to jack the car up. And I like to have talking about my friend's truck that was decked out with all these tools. I mean, I don't have anything like that in my trailer, but I do have some basics. Like I like to have a claw hammer, a set of pliers, a rubber mallet's actually useful because you never know when you might need to whack something. Like my hitch pin got stuck one time and I needed something to whack it with, right? So having a hammer or a mallet is really useful. And then a tip about changing the tires, because we forgot. It wasn't until afterwards we were like, oh, this would have been so much easier if we'd remembered this. But loosen the lug nuts on the tire before you put it up in the air. Because once the tire is off the ground, it's much harder to get your lug nuts loosened than when they're so loosened. Not so much the wheel's going to fall off, but like just take, untension them, loosen them a bit, and then put it up on the ramp. And you'll find it's much easier.
Yeah, and I just went to Harbor Freight. I mean, Harbor Freight has pretty cheap tools. Like if you're a mechanic or you're doing construction, like you don't want these for everyday tools, but to make a fairly affordable little toolkit to throw in your trailer or your truck,
right.
Like it's a great place to go just to grab some things just to have in there.
Right. Well, and they're useful when you get places, right? And I can't tell you how many stalls I've been in that I've had to pull nails out of the wall before I put my horse in there, or whack a piece of metal that's coming off something, right? So having a hammer and a set of pliers can make stalls and things safer whenever you get to your destination too, or just fix all kinds of things.
This is also another funny thing, and it reminds me of when I was in Arizona with you, but you should also check your truck and make sure that it's in good working order and that all of your fluids are at the correct level, including your windshield wiper fluid. So it was like, these are different things about living in different areas, but I don't know what time it was, 8:00 at night. I'm getting ready to drive back. It was dark. I had to drive back to Iowa the next morning, realized that I didn't have any wiper fluid in my truck. Claire's like, oh, just put water in it. That's what we do. Well, Claire obviously lives nowhere where things freeze.
I said water with Windex, not just water, but a little bit of Windex in it.
That we buy wiper fluid that's for -30. You can't put some
I didn't even
water.
know that existed.
Anyway, make sure your truck also has fluids, and definitely like the windshield wiper fluid is really important. Like bugs at night in the summer, they're legit.
Yeah.
Like they're pretty bad. So anyway, it was funny. We got it done.
Yeah, for sure. Other couple of sort of toolkitty things I have is I have a hazard triangle in my truck that I can set out behind a trailer. Like if you break down, right, and you're on the shoulder, it can be hard for vehicles moving at speed to tell that a vehicle parked on the shoulder is actually stationary and that they're not on the highway. So you really need a hazard triangle to put behind the trailer. And you typically would put that on behind the trailer, about 45 meters away from the trailer is the recommendation. So that's like 45 meters for people that work in feet. You're like, what is that? Well, if you're a hunter jumper rider, you already know how to pace that out. But basically, it's 45 good sized walking steps, right? So that's kind of how far back you want to put that.
Yep. And road flares. I mean, I'm never going to recommend anybody use a road flare because fire risk is just way too high for me. Like, I don't even like people to check, this is another thing. We weren't even going to talk about this, but make sure your chains are not dragging.
Oh,
that is like one of the easy things to start a fire along your travels is if your chains are dragging and make a spark. And in some places like Iowa, doesn't matter. Nothing is ever going to catch on fire here. It's too wet. But when I lived in Colorado, something that simple can start a really serious fire. So I'm going to say don't use road flares and check your chains.
Yeah, for sure. They really are a fire risk. And going back to the trailer itself, it's worth making sure, like checking the direction of the roof vents. Mm-hmm. I don't even know that a lot of people, I've certainly had friends that didn't even really realize that those things move.
Well, I always forget. Lots of times I'll close them because it's going to rain, like if my trailer's out. So I'll close them.
Yeah.
And then I'll be going and I'm like, oh, these aren't even actually open.
Yeah. So for people that don't realize, like roof vents, they're bi-directional. They can be forwards or back, and you pull them down. Like Jill was just saying, you can completely close them and then you push up the other side, right? Mm-hmm. So you can pull or push either side. And so if they're up in the front, then obviously as you're going along, the air is going in and coming into the trailer and creates sort of a draft over the top of the horses. You might not want that in the winter, but certainly here in the summer, I put mine that way, right? So they're open forward. In the winter, when it's cooler, you maybe want to let the hot air out of the trailer, but you don't want that draft coming in. So then you close them in the front and open them in the back. So that's something that people often don't even realize those things move.
Right. And then, the windows, obviously, we all open up the windows, get the fresh air going in, especially, it's very hot in the summer and muggy and things like that. But it'll keep the horses cooler. But for lung health while traveling, it's also important for that the fresh air is going in. If you do have drop-down windows, you need to make sure that you have some kind of guard on them, whether it's a screen guard or the metal guard, so that the horses can't put their heads out while you're actually moving.
Oh my God, that blows my mind.
I know.
When you're going down the road and you see a head sticking, oh my gosh.
I know. And putting a fly mask on. So fun story. My pony has one eye, and I had gone to a show, and somebody, when I had tacked up, they threw my fly mask in the back of the trailer. And when I loaded him, he pooped on it. So I didn't put it on his face going home. And then I had the show the next day, got home, his eyes all swollen, which is not good when you have a one-eyed horse, had to have the vet out. So yeah, putting a fly mask on can be helpful to just keep, dust, debris, loose hay bits out of their eyes. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, some trailers have, kind of, screens, right, on the window, so you don't have to worry. But I think if you don't have any screen, you have an open window, a fly mask is a really good idea. So, and then one last thing, if you're going to hook your truck and trailer up, is make sure your lights work, right, when you're hitched up, because it's especially, you and I tend to be trailering on our own, right, without another person. It's really easy to just kind of hitch up and go. Right. And you sort of forget that, you've plugged the plug in, so you assume it's working, but
I don't ever forget.
I don't ever either, but I see people that do. It's easy to just get complacent and be like, well, the 50 other times I checked it, it was fine.
Right. Or I used it yesterday and it was fine.
Totally. Right. Yeah. So, but that's just making sure that your lights are working. So that's a very quick overview of truck and trailer setup, and there's a lot more you could get into. Things like pull your mats at least once a year, right, out of the trailer. If you've got mats in the trailer, check your floor properly, that kind of thing. But assuming that's all in order and it's all good to go, then you can turn your attention to the other things you need to pack. So what do you always pack in your trailer? Do you have things that you always have when you travel?
Water and water buckets.
Yeah.
Regardless of how short the trip is, because I want to be able to water the horses. Like if we break down, if I'm stuck in traffic, you never know what's going to happen along the way, that you might have a 45-minute drive that turns into 3 hours, right? So, and if it's 90 degrees out, so I always have water in buckets with me.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, beyond that, it's useful here. I always think about being able to sponge the horses off too, right? You could probably figure out a way. I mean, I have a straight load trailer, so it's a little easier, maybe harder in a slant load to get the horses in the middle. But, being able to kind of, at least like put water on their necks and stuff within arm's reach if they're hot, can be helpful. Like I always try to have I have a 5 gallon, you know, I don't have storage built into my trailer, right? So I have an aftermarket 5 gallon thing. Do you have storage in your, because some people have those actual trailer water containers.
Yeah, so I have a weekender trailer and the bench inside. I mean, you've been in my trailer, so the sitting bench, you can open that and the tank, instead of being up and down, lays sideways. So it's like, it was a great storage idea. And I have a spigot on the outside of my trailer that you can actually turn the water on and off.
Oh, that's nice. See, I don't have that. And I have a 2-horse and I don't have anywhere to really put, like some of the slant load trailers have those vertical corner triangular water tanks in the corner of the tack room. I don't have really any way to do that. So I just bought, actually, I think it's supposed to be a gas tank. It's clear white, though. It's white plastic, and it has
it's the camping one, right?
Yeah, it's like a camping one. Exactly. Yeah. And it's like a big 5 gallon one that I keep in my tack room. I just tuck it in the corner, or I can put it in the bed of the truck if I don't have room in the tack room. So,
what's something that you always keep in your trailer?
I have so much stuff in my trailer because I board. It's kind of like my second tack room, right? So anything I don't need day to day lives in my trailer tack room. So all my out of season blankets and things. So I mean, I have ridiculous amounts of stuff in my trailer. I mean, the good thing about that is I have a lot of spare stuff. But one thing I always have in my halter, and I keep them, I have a hook right inside the door that I had put in my trailer, is I have spare halters and lead ropes. And one of my trailering nightmares is to, horses pull back, right? They get their foot over the road. If something happens and they break their hole, they pull back, tied to the trailer, they pull back. Something happens, right? The halter breaks and you don't have a halter. Or you're on the side of the road, you have to unhitch and something happens. And, so I always have a spare halter and a spare lead rope that will fit any horses in my trailer. And I can't tell you how many times we've got to destinations. Well, somebody's horse has pulled back from their trailer, right? It's running around the showground with no halter on. Right. And I just know that I have a halter right inside my door. And I just know it's there and I can grab it. That must be the Pony Clubber in me, right? Because when you set up tack rooms in Pony Club, you have to have your flashlight and your jackknife and your fire extinguisher right inside the door of your tack room.
For an emergency.
For an emergency, yeah. So there are certain things in my trailer that have very specific locations. I know exactly where they are. Yep. And they're always put back there for that reason. And halters is one of them.
Another safety thing for an emergency in your tack room is your fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
But also having one in your truck, because in the event, God forbid, your trailer catches on fire, you may not be able to get to your tack room, right? We've seen that before, right. I mean, on the Facebook post. So they do make slim fire extinguishers for vehicles that don't take up that much space. They, can fit under your seats. And so having one in your truck is also really handy.
Yeah, I actually don't have one in my tack room. But I do have one in my truck behind the driver's seat. So probably should get another one for my tack room. And it's worth making sure they haven't expired because thankfully we don't use them very often. Hopefully we never use them. And they do actually have an expiration date. I don't know that people always realize that. So it's good to check and make sure that they haven't expired and also make sure that they're the right class of fire extinguisher. Yeah. Because again, they come in different, different classes and they're not all appropriate for use on all things. So you want one that's good for that you could use, for example, in your truck engine, but also to put out a hay fire in your trailer, right? That might not be they can't all do all things. I think a basic first aid kit's really smart to have. We talked about a basic toolkit. I think a basic first aid kit, both for you and your horse, is a good idea, right? And probably, I admit, I actually don't have this in my trailer, but it's something I think about a lot, is having some kind of sedative in your trailer, which, only because I've heard enough stories of situations where being able to sedate a horse in a tricky situation was really useful. And obviously that's a conversation you need to have with your vet as to what they
And you need to
feel,
be comfortable administering it.
Yeah, so there could be something like dorm gel, right? That you don't, I'm not, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. You need to have a conversation with your vet about what that sedation would look like.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I know horses that have, put their legs over partitions, or something's happened with another horse in the trailer, and, a horse is freaking out and is unsettled and is going to hurt itself because it's unsettled. So
this all sounds very bleak. Who doesn't want to get their trailer out now and put their horse in it?
I know, right?
And while most people rely on their vehicle insurance to provide roadside assistance for their cars, those policies are unlikely to come and rescue you if you're towing horses.
Right.
However, there are roadside assistance programs specifically for towing, and these programs also cover your regular car and also travel with the policy holder. So if your friend is hauling your horse and you break down and you're in their vehicle, you'll be covered. Like, you can use that coverage.
Yeah, it's well worth having, I think, especially if you, are traveling greater distances, not just running around town,
Right.
like if you're heading off into like the great blue yonder kind of thing. So they're definitely great to have. And I know several people who've had them and have used them have actually trucks have broken down, and they've actually needed to have another truck come out and hitch up their trailer and take their horses to their destination. And they've done that for them. So, but I think at the same time, is not an excuse to be unprepared, right? Having a policy like that is not an excuse to be unprepared. I still think you need all the preparation and stuff we've been discussing. And hopefully you just never need it. But those policies definitely give you peace of mind. We honestly, I think back to like when we were towing in England, like we never had half of this stuff, right? But we didn't even have a trailer tack room, so we didn't have anywhere to put any of this stuff. But we weren't traveling nearly such long distances. We weren't in the middle of nowhere the same way that you can be here. And we also didn't have the extreme climate and geographic conditions. Like we weren't towing up the Rocky Mountains, right? Like when you live in Colorado, like there is no topology in the UK like the Rockies. So it just wasn't quite the same. And thankfully, I never really heard of trailering, bad stories when I lived until I kind of came to the US. And so I think a little bit like ignorance was bliss. And we were lucky if we traveled more than an hour, though, ever, right? When I came here and people were routinely going 14 hours to get to a show, it kind of blew my mind. But knowing what I know now, what was that?
I keep going.
Yeah, I think knowing what I know now, I think that's, it's smart to have a lot of this stuff on hand, no matter how short your trips are. And like most things with horses, right, I think it's always better to be over-prepared and prepared for the worst and then hope you never have to use it.
Yeah. And for our listeners outside of the United States, like it is not uncommon. I mean, you said, people that are going 14 hours to show, like to have to drive 2, 4, 5 hours to go to a show on a weekend, like that's somewhere between 300 and 500 kilometers. Like it's pretty common that people are doing that every weekend in the summer to get shows. I mean, my closest shows are 4.5 hours. I can go to Chicago, I can go to Milwaukee, or I can go to Minneapolis.
Right? And we were out here in the West. Hours. In the West, I mean, depending on your discipline, if you're an event rider in the West, you would kill to only have to go 4 hours.
Right.
Right. I mean, when I lived in Northern California, we had one that was probably 2.5, 3 hours away. It was our closest event. And beyond that, you were traveling at least 10 hours.
How long does it take to drive across the entire UK?
Well, the roads aren't quite the same as they are here. But
do you know how many kilometers it is, like top to bottom?
It's like 900 miles from like John O'Groats to Land's End. But you would do that. You'd be hard pressed to do that in a day.
Yeah. Anyway, just for comparison.
Yeah.
Just for comparison.
Yeah. We never, I mean, growing up, we never went more than 2 hours, but we were blessed. I mean, we could literally put a 2 hour like radius on a map and we could show every weekend.
Yeah.
We just
don't. Back in the day.
Back in the good old days in good old England. I know, right? Yeah. And I think much of Europe is quite like that too. So it's very different out here in the Western United States. So
let's talk about feed. So most people give their horses access to hay while they're in the trailer, and there are several ways to provide this. Like some trailers have built-in mangers, and others you have to hang hay nets. Is there any considerations with that?
Yeah, I mean, I really like horses to have access to hay while traveling. I mean, there's definitely people have pros and cons about this, right? They don't like, they worry about like hay and like the air, like blowing through the hay and hay bits getting blown in the horse's face and, that kind of thing. And the dust and things that it can provide, and their airways are somewhat compromised while they're traveling. But I'm a big advocate of having hay available, because unfortunately one of mine doesn't eat hay while the trailer's in motion. He won't eat, which is unfortunate because he is definitely one who tends to be prone to gastric ulcers. So eating with hay would really benefit him while he was traveling. But obviously, if they're eating hay, they're chewing. If they're chewing, they're creating saliva, and the saliva is going to buffer stomach acid, as well as the hay obviously just provides a lot of good fibrous material to soak up that stomach acid and reduce acid splash. So all around, it's a good way of reducing your ulcer risk. And we know that trailering is stressful, even for good travelers, and that it creates an ulcer risk. So providing hay is a great way to reduce that risk. However, research also shows that for airway health, horses need to be able to lower their heads, right? And sometimes the way that mangers are configured or the way we hang hay nets, they can't do that as well. So that's something to think about. And then additionally, if your horses are tied while traveling, we know research has shown that it really benefits them to be able to lower their heads. So tying them long enough that they can get their heads down, but obviously not so long that they can get tangled in a rope, put their foot over a rope, get their head under the rope. Those kinds of things, and cause them to panic. But thinking about how you're going to hang your hay nets, taking these factors into consideration is something to think about.
And I always hang mine on twine, and I also always tie on twine. I don't ever hard tie anything, so it'll break.
Yeah, me too.
Every time I see anybody that hard ties, I just cringe. It just makes me cringe. It's just one of those things.
Especially, and thankful. And I definitely, again, horses can just do stupid things in trailers. So, yeah, my hay nets are always...
Or anytime.
But it's just, you're putting a flight animal in an enclosed box. Honestly, frankly, I don't know why any horse gets in any horse trailer. They're so trusting.
Same.
They're so trusting. It goes completely against their instincts. They're such amazing, trusting creatures. But, I always hang my hay nets on baling twine.
And I think net hole size should be a consideration, and people don't think about that very much. I mean, we've talked about this on our hay nets episode before. There's those old school hay nets that have 4 and 5 inch holes that you put the hay in and it all just falls out. And using those in the trailer, yes, the horse has easy access, but they also then end up with a pile at their feet, which they're then going to want to put their head down to get.
Well, that's exact. I tell you, my pony, I've done that, right? I mean, our pony can be so greedy, right? And he will put his head under the breast bar, right? If there's no hay left for the hay net, he'll try to put his head under the breast bar to try and... he's small enough. Yeah. Have you seen him? He's not starving. He's small enough that he can back up in the compartment that he's in and get his head under the breast bar. Now, clearly, you have to tie him in a way that that's not possible. But, that is... I self-load him. So, you just tell him to get in the trailer, and he gets in the trailer and throw the rope over his back and then close up everything behind him. But what does he do? He goes straight in and puts his head under the breast bar to eat all the hay on the floor, especially if the horse that was in there first had alfalfa. So, to your point, those hay nets can all the hay just ends up on the floor. And
then I had the opposite issue that I always have really tiny, 1/2 inch, 1 inch holes. Right. And they're too restrictive for my guy. And he just chose not to eat out of it. I don't know if it had to do with how much work you have to work at those to get the hay out, but I ended up having to get something that was bigger because he wouldn't eat with the more restrictive ones. So,
and our pony couldn't care less. And if I didn't use a tiny hole hay net, his hay would be done in 15 minutes, right? So, and then he'd be trying to figure out how to get his head on the floor to eat the scraps.
So if you're going to be gone for more than a day trip, do you recommend taking your own forage with you?
Yes. Right, whenever it's possible, that would be my preference, because as we've talked about in other episodes, it helps maintain that continuity and it helps maintain a stable gastrointestinal environment, especially for high gut bacterial populations. So ideally, you take your own forage with you to last your whole trip, but clearly that isn't always feasible. So the next best thing would be to take enough to be able to then gradually change to whatever forage you're going to have available at your destination. over a few days. And if that's not possible, then you at least try to kind of go like to like, right? So if you've been feeding Timothy at home, you're going to try and feed Timothy at your destination. And sometimes that's all you can do. Sometimes, if you're going out in the backcountry, we mentioned it in our last episode. We were talking about when you lived in Colorado, the string color, right, on the hay and the weed-free forage.
You have to have certified weed-free hay. Yep.
Right. So sometimes you may find that the forage that you're feeding at home is not certified weed-free, and if you're going backcountry, camping or trail riding or whatever, you won't be able to take that forage with you into the state parks or what have you. So that can take a bit of pre-planning. Right. Maybe you can find weed-free certified forage at home. And, ideally, maybe you would switch to it ahead of time. This would be a great time. I think we talked about it in one of the episodes. This is a great time to maybe do some pellets, some hay pellets, right? So you could buy a hay pellet from a national retailer and have something similar, that you're feeding at home that you would then feed when you get to your destination. And, you can pack pellets sometimes more easily than especially if you've got pack mules or whatever going with you too, right? You can pack pellets. Hay is obviously hard to pack. So if you're going into the backcountry, there are some considerations with forage that you can get around with some pre-planning.
Full disclosure, I'm never going in the backcountry to go trail riding, and I'm never taking a pack mule or a pack donkey or pack anything. That whole thing sounds horrific. This timid rider, never going to do it.
Those mules are phenomenal. I remember hiking in Yosemite. I was hiking the backcountry trails in Yosemite about 2 weeks before all of the high country stations opened, and the mule trains came through. They were doing all the maintenance, opening the trails and maintaining all the trails. They're phenomenal. And if you've seen the mules that go into rescue areas,
the rescue ones, yeah,
they're just amazing.
They are, but it's not
doesn't float your boat.
I don't feel inspired at all. Not a trail riding kind of girl.
Well, I'm sure we've got listeners who love to do that in the summer.
I know.
Honestly, I can't even imagine. It must be just stunning to be out in some of our landscape that we have here is just out of this world, and to do that, on horseback or, would just be, honestly, for me, that would be a pretty good bucket list item. I would enjoy that, but that's not your thing.
No. So drinking while traveling is always a major concern. Do you have any tips or tricks for that? We
mentioned earlier, right, having your own water with you, and that can definitely help, especially if you're, let's say you're on well water normally and you're going somewhere like to a show. A lot of those big show facilities are using city water, and that's going to be treated with, chlorine and stuff, so it has a smell that might not be familiar to the horses. Conversely, if you're always on city water and you go to somebody's place and they're on a well, it could have like dissolved salts and things in it, naturally occurring salts that your horse thinks are the worst thing ever. So having some of your own water with you is a really good insurance policy, at least for the first little while. Something that you can do, an old trick that's been around for a long time, that we've talked about in other episodes, is you can train your horses to drink flavored water before you leave home. So things like putting apple juice in your water, Kool-Aid, things like Gatorade, stuff like that that's going to flavor the water. I knew a hunter jumper trainer that actually used apple cider vinegar. She would put apple cider vinegar. What do you use?
Listerine.
Really?
So I use Listerine in the summer anyway to keep the algae down in my tank. Like I always put a splash in it, right? And the horses seem to love it. Like I get the green Listerine. I don't know, it's mint flavor or something. So I have a bottle of that in my trailer, and I'll just add a splash to the bucket. It really covers up any. I mean, you know what Listerine's like, right?
Right.
I just put like a tiny splash of it in there, but it. I don't know. My horse is like the mint one.
I mean, you're oftentimes, doing it in the water before you leave. So the idea is that you
to get them used to it.
It makes your home water, and they're like, oh, it tastes minty, and then this water tastes minty too, right? And then they don't notice, but. I think we've always said before, if you're going to add anything to your water, I don't care if it's Listerine or electrolytes, right? You need to have a plain bucket of water as well
two
to
buckets.
make sure that, for sure. So
that's a very good point. There are water additives on the market that claim to help horses drink. Are you familiar with any of these, and do they work?
I am familiar with them, although I know they exist, and I certainly have clients who've used them and they rave about them. I don't have any personal experience using them, as luckily I've always had horses that drink well when traveling. But it may be a good idea to have such a product in your trailer in case your horse stops drinking. And the nice thing about those products is that they come in convenient, like 1-dose packets. So they're very easy to keep in your trailer.
And if any of those companies want to send us a sample, we will talk about them next time. We'll certainly try them out.
One of them I know has a root beer flavor that apparently the horses really dig the root beer flavor. Who knew?
Interesting.
Listerine and root beer sounds amazing.
Such nice, refreshing
and then,
flavors.
It's funny because the other thing people used to do is they would just get a handful of sweet feed, right, and just throw it in the water. Or
alfalfa, like some
alfalfa leaves, or like something, right? Like sometimes that'll work too. So if you find yourself in that situation, you haven't done the apple juice thing at home, you don't have any of these commercial products, and you're like, how do I get my horse to drink? Like anything, if you've got some of your regular sweet feed, I would even argue maybe balancer, like anything. Like I know people that put apples in their water, like just to get them to play. If you've got my daughter's pony thinks that's the best thing ever, right? Because he's really curious and he's a busybody, and so like bobbing for apples, he thinks is really fun. And for him, you can get him to drink by even just like splashing your hand in the water and just kind of getting his attention, and then he just kind of wants to mess with it too, and he'll start drinking. So there's all sorts of little tricks you can use.
And hydration on the road is really important. I know that you've shared with me before how much horses sweat when they're in the trailer.
Yeah, it can be a lot.
Right.
Yeah. I remember years ago now, there was an article published in Horse and Hound, which is sort of the British equivalent of the closest thing in the US is Chronicle of the Horse. The magazine is, Horse and Hound's been around for years, and they have articles in there written by experts on various topics. And there was an article there written, I think it was Dr. David Marlin actually was interviewed for it. And, he was mentioning that the horses that go on a 10-hour trailer ride sweat as much as horses doing the traditional 3-day event speed and endurance components. So that would have been, roads and tracks, steeplechase, roads and tracks, and cross country. And, people think about that kind of type of exercise, and it's obvious those horses are sweating heavily. You don't think that they could be sweating that much on a 10-hour trailer ride. And most of the time that's because, we do have airflow going over the horses. And so, we all know, like you can go for a run outside and you don't feel that sweaty, right? And then you stop and you just suddenly are super sweaty. And it's because you no longer have air moving over you, kind of moving that moisture off your skin. So when they're in the trailer, any moisture they're generating is just being removed right away by the airflow. And so we often don't even realize they have been sweating.
Yeah. It seems like it would be really important to make sure your horse is well hydrated before you even go on your trip, especially for a longer trip. How do we do that? How do you make sure that they're hydrated prior to getting on the trailer?
Yeah, it's tempting, right, to shove a ton of electrolytes into them like the day before. But really, it's not really going to do anything because horses can't store more electrolytes than they need, right? So at the end of the day, they're just going to pee that out as long as they've got access to fresh water. I guess it's not the end of the world, but it is a waste of money. And they're not going to store that and, kind of go, oh, look, here's a ton of extra electrolytes. I'll just kind of hide that away for, a rainy day or sunny day, I guess. Right. So a better strategy is to make sure that every day you're providing adequate electrolyte, which starts by providing salt every day.
This might be your second favorite topic after ration balancers.
It might be. My salt lecture, my little salt soapbox.
Remind the listeners how much salt they should be feeding.
Yeah, so I recommend 1 tablespoon of salt for every 500 pounds of body weight every day.
Every day.
Just every day, 365 days of the year.
Doesn't matter if it's hot, doesn't matter if it's cold, every day.
Every day. And the extra day when it's a leap year, right? Yeah. And that just, gives them the sodium and chloride they need on a cool day, not sweating. Right? That's just their baseline sodium chloride needs. And then you're also going to get them access to a block, right? So if they want more, they can go find it.
A white block.
A white block. Yeah, don't waste your money on the red ones. It's just a ton of iron that you don't need.
Right.
And don't just rely on a block, because they generally don't lick a block adequately to meet their daily salt needs. But they do need to have one because they may use it, right? And then if they're sweating, then you're going to add an electrolyte, a well-balanced electrolyte, in addition to the salt. But they're going to get salt every day. That's how you make sure that their electrolyte levels are where they need before you put them in the trailer.
That's one thing that I notice in the summer is people giving electrolytes without giving the salt, and also not taking the salt with them when they travel.
I know. Years ago, I don't know if I've told this story in another episode or not, but
Tell it again.
have. Okay. Well, I mean, doing a consult for a client, and it was a dressage client, and she was complaining that by like the third day of the show, she didn't have very good flying changes anymore. And I just sort of asked her, what does she do for salt? And I was looking over the stall door of her show stall, and there was no salt to be seen. And she's like, "Oh, I give him a salt block." And I'm, "Well, where is it?" And she's like, "Well, it's at home." So if you rely on your salt block as your only source of salt, and you take your horse away for a week in the backcountry backpacking or, whatever, and you don't take your salt block with you, how are you going to get your horse salt? Right. So that's one of the things. That's one of the reasons why I like to put it in the grain and give the salt block. But I'm just in the habit of adding salt to their grain every day. And then if I do travel somewhere and I forget to take the salt block, it's not the end of the world, because it's in their grain already. And then I just have that peace of mind. It is the cheapest colic insurance you will buy.
And for everybody that says that their horse won't eat the salt or the electrolytes in their feed, my new horse won't do it either.
Really?
And won't touch it. And when I wet it just a little so it'll stick to it, guess what? He just doesn't eat his feed.
Oh, you've gone from a pony to a picky eater.
Yes, and I'm just like, okay, you sweat all the time. You are a good sweater, and now I have no way to get this in you. Anyway, we're working on it. I'm going to come up with something to help all those people, all the listeners that have this problem.
Stay tuned. We'll have to do a little snippet on what you found that works. But one thing you can do is, if you give your horse any oil, is to put the salt in the bucket and put your oil on top of the salt and then mix it in. And you do give him some oil, so try that, see if that works. Because you don't give him any oil? I thought you gave him fish oil.
He is on a whole bunch of nothing right now. He gets his 1 pound of balancer and salt that he doesn't eat and super sport. He's got a very boring diet.
Well, get him some fish oil, and put the fish oil. Probably won't like that either. But
I was going to say, yeah. Then I'm going to end up with expensive fish oil that he won't eat.
If you pour a little oil on the salt, you coat the salt with oil. And then it's not so caustic, and they maybe don't taste it as well, right?
I was going to try some sugar-free maple syrup.
Yep, that might work too. But if you end up adding oil because you need an omega-3 source in the diet, then you're doing double duty. That's where I was going with the fish oil.
I know.
But anyway, so yeah, I do think you're right. I think a lot of people don't give salt at all, and then they just give electrolytes in the summer, and so then all they're doing is they're giving the equivalent of the baseline salt to meet the daily needs, standing around not sweating. They're not giving enough to replace sweat losses.
Right.
But definitely a lot of the electrolytes taste better than straight salt. So, you may find that he is a horse that you end up doing electrolytes because they're flavored instead of...
He doesn't eat them. I give him both. No, he won't touch it.
Salt pellets. They make salt pellets. That's something you could try. There's pelleted salt out there.
I'll try it.
In mixed with alfalfa, you get normal supplement type pellets. It's got salt in it. Anyway, so yeah, but you want to be giving your electrolytes in addition to the salt. And if you're not giving salt and your electrolyte, then you need to be doing more electrolytes to make up for the lack of salt that should be in there as your base.
Okay.
It's tricky if you have one that doesn't like salt.
Right. And then if you're traveling, you need to be stopping regularly to give them a break and yourself a break, and offering them water.
Yes.
A lot of the truck stops have water that you can get. Again, we're back to they may or may not drink it, but you need to at least be offering it to them, giving them the option to stop and have a drink.
Yeah, absolutely. And try and park in the shade. when you
Right.
stop, right? I don't think people always think about and what you're parked on, right? So if there's kind of more of like a dirt lot type area you can park on, I would park on that than on the blacktop. It's not going to radiate as much heat
Yeah.
off the ground. The blacktop gets so hot and it's going to radiate that heat. Stop, open your, when we stopped, like on the trip we took to California, I don't know about when you were traveling in the winter when you came down previously, but, open the doors, right? Let the, so you can really like let the air out and the heat out, like let the air, fresh air in there, kind of like open the, if you've got people doors or whatever, drop the windows down or whatever so they can stick their heads out, that kind of thing, like really let them kind of relax. And I mean, I like to stop, you should stop every 2 to 4 hours, right? So roughly every 3 is a good rule of thumb.
Yep. And it's not uncommon for the temperature inside the trailer to be 20 degrees hotter than it is outside. So for that reason, it's recommended to start your trips early in the morning or start driving after dark in order to avoid driving through the hottest part of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely like insulation you can have put on the roof of your trailer that, can help and that kind of thing. They do get hot.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. Another thing we didn't discuss earlier, when we were talking about the trailer component, is having fans. So my last trailer, I actually had my trailer guy hardwire some fans into my trailer. And that just, I don't know they're really going to keep the horses cold, but they do really help with the air movement and keep air moving. But if you don't have hardwired fans, there's plenty of rechargeable fans that you can use. I think that's what you have in your trailer, don't you?
Yeah, I don't have fans, and I just went on Amazon and I ordered camping fans, which are for the inside of tents. And so they come with a hook already on them.
Nice.
So, and then they swivel and they turn, and they actually last, like you can charge them with a USB cable. And I want to say that, I had a 2.5 hour drive one way and a 2.5 hour drive the other way. And I had 2 of them and I used one of them in the stall for the day.
Yep.
And they stay charged.
At the event when you got there?
At the event. Yeah.
Oh,
and
wow.
they stay charged the whole day. So I didn't have to recharge them. So certainly Amazon, take a look at camping fans if you just need something. Because, where I live, it's not that hot most of the time. Like there's very few days where it's like, oh my gosh, like it's way too hot to go in the trailer. So that's just, if you want to have something on hand, or you can just put it in your tack room. So when you're between rides, you can cool yourself off.
Yeah, talking about camping equipment that's useful in a trailer along those lines, I have USB chargeable camping lights in my trailer. And the same thing, they have little snappy hooks on because my trailer lights only work if my truck is turned on, right? I don't always want to be running my truck.
I'm gonna one up you. Here's my trailer hack, which also works for when you're braiding in the stall and there's no lighting in there and it's so dark. I have the solar charged lights, and I bought magnetic strip tape and put magnetic strip tape on it, and they stick to the trailer and they stick to the stall bars. And they're so handy. And I actually have them outside around my property, and they just are sensors, so they turn on and off. But they are super, super bright. And I have those everywhere. And like I said, you just put the magnetic strip on it. You can stick it on anything.
We have something similar. We have a motion sensor, USB chargeable camping light in our porta potty at the barn.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. You open the door of the porta potty and the light comes on. It's like the most glorious porta potty I've ever been in.
Yeah.
It's a very bougie porta potty. But yeah, there's all sorts of like little like things like that now that because I hate like having to leave my truck running. Like if we're, loading up in the morning or the evening, like running my truck, especially with gas prices the way they are. So for sure. It's a great thing. But I think we've covered probably most of the things that I can think of. Except I guess if you're crossing state lines, you need to have health paperwork in order and you need to check the requirements for the states you're going to be visiting.
Yep, absolutely. And that's going to be different on every state. And it's also going to be dependent on if there's any outbreaks of disease like vesicular stomatitis, which you guys have right now, I think.
Yeah.
I think Colorado has it right now also.
Yeah, it's not uncommon in the summer because it's carried by flies. Yep. And so that's the thing too, is that I believe just recently somewhere, it may have been California, maybe Arizona, like we were on a 7-day health certificate. But I believe they've gone back to a 30-day, which is more typical. But like, don't assume you can get out and back from your trip on the same health certificate, right? Because the requirements can change quickly. So make sure you're checking the requirements haven't changed. Like if you go away for 10 days, a lot can happen in 10 days, right? And the states can change their health certificate timelines. So make sure you've got a plan of how you're going to get a new health certificate if you need one.
Well, and I can also say it depends if you're going to a show to the showgrounds. I mean, the one year that I was in Colorado, I'm trying to remember what the outbreak was, but you had to have a health certificate within 48 hours. They were checking papers on the road. If you didn't have your health certificate within 48 hours, you couldn't come on. You couldn't drive your truck on to turn around.
I think that was vesicular stomatitis, because when my daughter came up to the horse park in Colorado that year, we flew in early, and we actually disinfected all the stalls because that was going on. So that was a 48-hour thing.
So that's the other thing. If you're going to a show, you got to make sure you know what the rules are around that, and make sure you have all the right documentation to go with it.
Yeah. Coggins testing, right? That's a big one too.
Yep.
So
what we haven't talked about are precautions to take once you get to your destination. Like, it's easy to be relieved once you arrive. You know, nothing happened. You didn't have a flat tire. Everybody's happy. The horse gets off the trailer. He's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. But what about biosecurity?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I just sort of actually hinted at it a little bit, but you know what I said. Right? Like the disinfecting the stalls that we did. And, but yeah, and it's especially important after traveling like a long way, right? Because your horse's immune system's often lowered after trailering due to the stress of travel. And that causes your cortisol levels, the horse's cortisol levels, to increase. So we know that impacts their immune system negatively. And the longer you travel, the higher their cortisol level gets. And so you need to watch your horse for signs of things like shipping fever. So really, if you're being super diligent, you should be taking temperatures, AM and PM, and making sure they're normal. That means knowing what normal is for your horse before you leave. So, doing it before you leave too. But a lot of show facilities actually require AM, PM temperature checks, and really, you should be doing this even if you're just going camping, right? Or taking your horse to your friend's house for the week or whatever. And then keeping your horse away from unfamiliar horses. So try to keep them with the cohort of horses they traveled with when you get to your destination, especially the first couple of days. There was research done by Dr. Stull at UC Davis that showed that for the first couple of days, their immune systems are definitely low, and it takes that long for them to start to recover. And part of that is from having their heads tied up, that they're not able to drain their airways. And so they've got a lot of junk in their airways, and their immune systems are kind of on edge. So don't let them touch noses with, oh, look at the cute horse over there. Like, don't go pet the cute horse over there and feed it a treat. Shouldn't be feeding strange horses treats anyway, but don't go petting the horse over there and then come back and pet your horse. Think about it. It's a real disease risk.
Well, and good biosecurity also means not sharing equipment with strange horses.
Right.
And I think we have all seen this, that you go to fill your horse's water buckets, and somebody being very helpful hooked their hose up so anybody in the aisle can use their hose so they don't have to carry their buckets down.
Right.
Don't take that hose and stick it in your water bucket. It's been in every other horse's water bucket. I mean, we don't know how many horses' water buckets it's been in, right? So you need to make sure that either you're going to carry your buckets, so you're going to unhook the hose and you're going to fill your buckets and you're going to carry them back. But if you're going to use that hose, that you try to wipe off the end of it, and not submerge it into your horse's water bucket when you're filling it.
Yeah, I feel like it was years ago now, but do you remember the EHV1 outbreak that happened at a show at Ogden in Utah? And that was traced back to the horses sharing a water trough in the warm-up arena. So water is definitely a potential source of, contamination and disease. When you think about it, a horse puts his nose in his water bucket, he's got his head down, and while he's drinking, all his snot drains out in the water, right? And then the next
Yeah.
horse comes along and drinks that in. So it kind of makes sense. And then you stick your hose in it and submerge the hose in the water and get all that stuck on the end of the hose. So hoses are definitely a good vector for disease. The bigger show facilities will disinfect stalls. We actually had a local show here, one of our local county fairgrounds. I was really impressed because they had a big jumper show had been in. And then the following weekend, we went in for a dressage show, and we actually got notified by our dressage show manager that the facility, because the jumper show had been so big, they had actually struggled to find the people to come and help disinfect all the stalls. And they notified us that the stalls were not going to be disinfected as they normally would have been, and that we should consider disinfecting our own stalls. And I was actually super impressed that we got that notification. And I actually didn't know that facility even disinfected their stalls. So that was kind of good. But obviously, if you're going to disinfect your stalls, you need to do it before you put your horse in it. And it is a total pain. I get it, right? You just want to get your horse off the trailer. But leave them on the trailer, go spray your stalls down. That means you need to have disinfectant with you. Talk to your vet about what is appropriate, for disinfecting stalls, and, get it done. And one thing that people don't realize, and years ago I did a sort of podcasty type thing with a veterinarian, and she explained that spraying disinfectant on manure on your stall wall, like that manure basically makes your disinfectant inert. So you actually need to scrape the organic matter.
Let's not use the word inert.
It renders it useless.
Thank you.
And anyway, you have to scrape the manure off the wall. So again, in your toolkit, maybe have a scraper so you can scrape dry poop off the walls.
Yep. And realistically, you need to have the disinfectant packed in your trailer.
Right.
And one of those landscaping spray pumps works really good. Like they come in different gallon sizes. You carry it and you pump the top of it, and then you just all over the walls. Like that works really good and lightweight, easy to carry. All you have to do, like if you put your disinfectant in, all you have to do is add water to it when you get there.
Exactly. But do the railings, everything, like the whole stall.
Yep. Spray it.
Yep. Is there anything we didn't cover?
Yeah. I think something that's really important, and living in a world of technology, we just don't think about this anymore, is how we're going to get where we're going. And it's super easy to type the address into your phone, and then Siri starts giving you the directions. But what if you don't have cell service? Or what if you have cell service and then you don't have cell service as you go along on your trip?
Right.
Most of the United States has pretty good coverage, but there are some areas, especially when you said when you went to San Diego to that show, I'm assuming you were on US 8, and that road used to never have service. There was a whole section that doesn't have service along there.
So when I was mentioning that the roadside assistance that rescued my friend, their truck died going up the hill in the canyon, and there is no cell service.
There's no service in there.
And what saved her was the fact that her daughter was following along in a car.
And could drive.
So she could drive, get cell service, and then phone and tell them where they were. I don't know what she would have done otherwise. But there's no cell service in that canyon. Yeah.
So make sure you look at your actual trip before you go, and you have a rough idea of where you're going in case you do lose service. Or you could get a map, an old school paper map. You could either print it out. I know that sounds wild, or you can get a map. And almost every U.S. state provides free official highway and transportation maps. You can contact them online. Like if you Google free road maps, they'll give you the links to the states you're going to, and they will mail you road maps so that you have them. Maybe you never have to use them. Maybe you don't know how to use them. There's lots of people driving now that never had a map, that's always had GPS, but at least you have it as an option if you did get stuck and you lost cell service.
Well, and this happened to us. Okay, luckily we were on vacation in Spain, and we were trying to go from Spain to another area of Spain, and our GPS decided to reroute us through France.
I
right? So that's
remember
the other
that.
thing that happens, right? Is that suddenly your route you can be rerouted, right? Like your GPS will just suddenly decide, oh, I'm just going to go this way instead, and that might not really be the way you want to go. And having a road map actually can be super. I'm really lucky. I mean, my parents never used GPS. They always had a road atlas. They went everywhere. They went all over Europe with a road atlas and could navigate. I mean, it was amazing to watch them like leave a freeway and take tiny surface streets to get places and do it all on a road map. To your point, it's kind of a lost art, but it's super helpful to have one of those available to you. And also, check that the route that your GPS is giving you is actually appropriate for a truck and trailer. Like I know, like there's a road when you leave Arizona and you go to, we have an equestrian facility in Southern California called Galway, and the road that most GPSs would take you, you would not want to take a truck and trailer on. And I know several people who did not know that and followed their GPS. And I mean, they were like white knuckle by the time they got to the end of it, because it's like switchbacks, and it's like the kind of switchbacks that like puts your truck's going one way and your trailer's still going the other way, and your trailer ends up like on the wrong side of the road, if that makes sense. It's like single road, whatever. Like you don't want to be on that. Even if you can tow it, your horse does not want to be on that. No. Right? So take the longer route that's nicer for your horse and safer. Right. And that's not always going to be the one that your GPS gives you as the first option, right? You may have to change your settings in your phone to tell it what kind of road you want. So yeah, definitely check that. You don't want to be that person that gets stuck. And actually, that's a fair point too. I know many of us that drive truck and trailers really hate reversing trucks and reversing.
I hate it.
It's really not that bad. You just have to do it. If you just do it, you get better at it. If you don't do it, you don't get better at it. And,
if I have to do it, I'll do it. But I also have my husband here all the time that I'm like, can you just hop in and move this for me?
Yeah. But if you're going to embark on a road trip,
you should learn how.
You should learn how to. Yes. We're all a little guilty of having the husband or the friend just hop in and do it for us. But do make sure you know how to get yourself out of a tight situation with your truck and trailer if you're going to go on an adventure with your horse this summer. And have fun, right? Like it's, as somebody who for a long time relied on other people for years to trailer my horses with me, it was a big deal when I bought my own truck and trailer, and it's so liberating and it's so fun to be. I know we've made it sound like super stressful and like.
Can we tell the listeners a little fun fact about our trucks?
Sure.
Do you know
I know where you're going.
Okay. What's your license plate?
Pony Puller.
How do you spell it?
How do I have it spelled? I think I have, actually, I don't remember. PONYPLR.
Right. And I have Pony Puller, and mine's PNYPULR.
Yes.
We should take pictures and put it on the
we both have red trucks too.
We both have red trucks. It's sort of silly.
It is silly, but it's an amazing investment. It's a big commitment. They take a lot of upkeep and work, and for the liberation it gives you is and it's so fun to be able to go places with your horse.
And our next episode, maybe not the next one, but the one we're going to cover here shortly, is about evacuation. And that's something that we're going to talk about again, about trailers and having trailers and things like that, because that's also very important when your trailer is going to come in handy. Exactly. So if you don't have a truck and trailer, to Jill's point about evacuation, we are heading into the summer season, which is our season of natural disasters. Make sure you have a plan. Make sure you have a friend. Don't just save it. We're gonna do a whole episode. We're gonna do a whole episode about it. But between now and when we do that, I think it's fair to say, be prepared. Be prepared. Think about who your friends are and who you're going to go with if you don't own a truck and trailer. So anyway, I hope everyone has fun with their horses this summer. And I'm hunkering down. I'm not going anywhere. It's 110 outside. We're done for the summer. But everybody else, enjoy your horses. Get out there and have some fun. For our listeners, if you'd like to be a part of our conversation, Please send your suggestions for future topics and equine nutrition questions to info@scoopandscale.com and is spelled out. You can also find Claire at clarityequine.com.
We know that if you're like us, you're probably listening to this while driving or doing barn chores. But when your hands are free, if you'd share it with your friends on social media and be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, it helps other horse lovers like you to find us.
For the Scoop and Scale podcast, I'm Jill Jackson.
And I'm Dr. Claire Tunis.
Thanks for riding along with us.